Hello and welcome to the Black Flags podcast, on the first episode of your Formula One introduction. And today we will be discussing the basics of what is the most expensive sport out there. For those who don't know, Formula One, or F1 as it can be abbreviated to, is the most watched motorsport and consists of 10 teams and 20 drivers who travel around the world doing what they love, racing. If you have ever doubted that motorsport isn't a real sport, then you would be wrong. The drivers work out and stay on a diet every day, and not to mention the training to deal with the G-forces. Now let's get into the basics of Formula One. The drivers spend 24 weekends of the year racing to win two championships, the Constructors and the Drivers. The Constructors is the championship for the teams to see how many points one team can score in a single season. And the Drivers is pretty self-explanatory. The driver who scores the most points wins the championship. There are two different types of races in an F1 calendar: 24 Grand Prix and 6 sprint races. A sprint race is a separate race to the Grand Prix and is a third of the distance but still counts towards the championships. Depending on the weekend, there might be a sprint, but a Grand Prix is every weekend. Alright, so let's talk about tires. There are 5 types. The dry tires, which are the softs, mediums, and hards. The softs are the fastest, with the most grip, and the hards are the slowest. The rain tires are the intermediates and the wets, but the wet tires are rarely used because if the rain is too heavy, they will probably stop the race. The normal F1 weekend works out like this. On Friday, there are 2 one-hour practice sessions where the teams test upgrades, figure out strategy, and more. On Saturday, they do another practice session and then qualifying, which I will explain later. And finally, on Sunday, is the beloved Grand Prix everyone waits for. The sprint race is different because instead of 3 practice sessions, there is only 1, and on Friday there's a separate qualifying for the sprint race. On Saturday they do the sprint and qualifying for the Grand Prix in that order. On to qualifying. As you may have already guessed, qualifying is to set the grid for either type of race. Qualifying starts with Q1, where the 5 slowest drivers get eliminated and can't participate in the next part. The same thing happens in Q2 and leaves the 10 fastest drivers to compete in Q3. Then Q3 sets the top 10 on the grid. Okay, so on to some smaller but important information. Every team has a reserve driver in case one of their main drivers can't drive, maybe because they are sick or injured. The reserve driver will take over. If you follow up with F1 news, you might be hearing a driver is being fired or is leaving a team to go to another one. That is because every driver is under a contract. In F1, there are a few types of penalties: time penalties, grid penalties, and fines. Time penalties are where a car is involved in an incident or infringement during a race, and to stop their car and serve a penalty. The penalty can be either 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or 20 seconds, but also can be a drive-through or a 10-second stop and go. Grid penalties are served after a Grand Prix qualifying session and are given for a lot of reasons, but also affect where you start the race. Fines can be given to both drivers and teams for a lot of different circumstances, and can range from a few thousand euros to many millions. So that's it. This is the end of episode 1, and I wish you an amazing rest of your day.